Lord Baylan is proving quickly to be one of the most interesting characters that we have seen in Star Wars lore for a while now. His motivations remain almost completely mysterious, but his personality says it all. He is a driven man who operates on a level of determination that we see in only a few people, such as Lord Vader. He is a lot more patient, cunning, and intelligent than most of the other adversaries have proven themselves to be. And not only this, but he is also incredibly insightful. He clearly possesses a deep connection with the Force, a unique one, and he uses his natural talents to great advantage. One of these natural talents is an ability that is usually underrated, the gift of foresight and introspection. What many may not know is that having a natural gift in this ability and the ability of precognition is quite rare, and those who have it usually prove to be very difficult to pin down or kill. In all of his appearances, Baylan shows an exceptional level of mastery over this specific power, and we believe it was because of this that he has survived Order 66. So my friends, let's open up this holocron and discuss the ability of foresight, and how Baylan's perception is his greatest asset, what ultimately may have turned him before Order 66, and what ultimately saved him from the Empire. The ability to look into the future, or to receive whispers of things to come through the Force, is something that many believe is quite common for most Jedi and Sith. But this is actually a misconception. It was an extremely rare and coveted talent amongst the Sith specifically. For the Jedi though, it was more common, but required an intense amount of training and focus to truly master. To be clear, when we reference future sight, we aren't talking about the power that is common to all Force sensitives, that being the ability to know when certain things are about to happen within the next few moments. All Force sensitives have an innate skill to be able to immediately sense when they or someone else is about to be in danger. The classic bad feeling is reference to wheel or woeful impression about the events or circumstances happening in the present. Rather, the power we are discussing today is the concerted effort of peering into the near or distant future and receiving visions or illuminations of certain things to come. While these two abilities are similar, the first is distinctly present-oriented, whilst future sight in its name has to do with the future and the natural flow of time, being able to peer into it. The Jedi, which were known to be exceptionally gifted in this talent, were Yoda, Anakin, and to a certain point Mace Windu, though Mace's ability of Shatterpoint was something a little different. Shatterpoint was the ability to sense moments in time that drastically affect the future, not so much sensing the future itself. To most Jedi, if they desire to peer into the future, it typically requires quiet moments of intense concentration and long periods of time in meditation to merely catch a glimpse of what is to come. Qui-Gon did this once and was able to see a planned event going disastrously and putting many people in danger. But to those who are naturally gifted in foresight, they will receive visions from the Force sometimes without ever even trying, as the Force may decide to speak to them in their sleep, meditation, lightsaber practice, or even a moment while they're using the Force in other ways such as telekinesis. If they train with the ability enough, they will almost be able to call upon the Force to look into the future at will, which is something we've seen both Baylan and Darth Sidious do, but we'll come back to this in just a moment. Receiving visions from the Force is a big part of the ability of future sight, and ironically, this was hotly contentious within the Jedi Order. In the past, there was an entire class of Jedi known as the Mystics, or otherwise known as the Seers, Jedi who delegated themselves to using their natural ability to peer into the future, and they would often receive prophecies and strange visions, all of which was put into the holocron of prophecy. The Jedi High Council didn't really believe in these prophecies all that much though, and they even deemed the ability of foresight to be extremely dangerous. The running doctrine seems to be that the Jedi should not concern themselves with the future, as this leads to worry, fear, and the desire to change the natural course of things, all of which they claimed led to the dark side. This is why when Jedi received a vision, they were told to ignore it. The High Council didn't really take visions seriously, mostly because the Force didn't always show those with foresight a clear picture of what was to come. Often, the Force chooses to reveal the future in a confusing jumble of images or situations being played out with no real coherency or context. The future is always in motion, and while one may have a future of the things to come to pass, it may not actually happen. As Revan points out, the Force will usually only grant a look at one of the many possible outcomes of the future. although through deep meditation and introspection, one might be able to unravel the puzzle given to them by the Force itself. But then again, this was discouraged by the Jedi High Council. But back to Baylan, we can tell he is extremely naturally gifted with future sight to such a degree that he is able to close his eyes for a moment and basically receive a download of the information. Sometimes this doesn't always work, such as when he decided to try and sense the path ahead with Morgan concerning the pathway to Peridia. He was uneasy about it and mentioned that the path was very clouded. This doesn't mean his power of foresights were weak, though as many things can cloud the future from even the most talented of seers. But the fact that he was able to ascertain that it was clouded in the first place in such a short amount of time without requiring meditation speaks to his talent with the power. But what makes it interesting is that the gift of foresight was rare among Sith and dark side wielders. We mentioned this earlier, but now we'll go into more detail. In the now Legends novel Revan, we learn this truth, as Revan is captured by the Sith Darth Nihilus and kept in her dungeon. Here, he is regularly visited by a Sith Lord by the name of Scourge. Scourge took an interest with Revan due to his familiarity with both the light and the dark, but during one of their many conversations, Scourge learns of the rumor that Jedi can peer into the future. He then reveals that foresight was not common amongst the power of the Sith, to which Revan guesses it was because of their selfish nature. The Sith do not surrender to the flow of the Force or the natural currents of time, and because of that, the Force doesn't feel inclined to show them anything. Scourge would later question Revan extensively about this topic, and eventually he would manage to receive a vision of his own after great effort. However, there were some Sith who were gifted in foresight, such as Darth Plagueis and Sidious. Plagueis once saw visions of Darth Vader and the coming of the Clone Wars as he tried to peer into the child Anakin's mind from afar. When Darth Tenebrous was living inside of Plagueis' cells, he hijacked the Sith Lord's ability of foresight and used it to see when Plagueis would die, which is what caused him to fall into a panic. We are all very familiar on how gifted Sidious was in foresight, as he was not only able to accurately see certain future events, but take steps in order to make sure that the future came to pass as he willed it. This is why he speaks on seeing many things play out as they were designed. Palpatine was the best user of this ability, since he not only took the visions he got seriously, but was able to capitalize on his opportunities to make them happen. Not only this, but Palpatine was even able to use this ability to look into the Force and discover the answers to questions that plagued his mind, such as the identity of one Luke Skywalker. The ability to look into the Force and gain knowledge about a specific place, person, or situation was rare. Vader used this to look into Luke's mind and learn of Leia, and Baylan did the same thing to Sabine when he learned what happened to her family on Mandalore, and how Sabine feels like Ezra is the last family that she has left. Baylan used this information to get into Sabine's head and convince her that surrendering the map was the only way. Since we've now established how foresight works and proved that Baylan is surely talented in the power, we can now find a clear picture as to how he survived Order 66. The Force saved him from this fate because he likely found out in a vision. What's curious in the timetables of this, though, is the dark side was used by Sidious to cloud the vision of the Jedi, in an effort that they wouldn't see the future at all, no matter how talented they were. But because of this, Jedi that embraced the dark side during the Clone Wars were able to see the vision clearly. Pong Krell clearly delved into the dark side to learn the end of the Jedi. Anakin saw the future when he was corrupted by the brother, and in an especially rare case, Maul learned of the coming Empire through a sudden vision granted to him when the day drew near. Yoda was only able to learn of the future when he visited the dark side cave on Dagobah. There are a few outliers to this though, as some Jedi caught very small glimpses of the future, but couldn't understand it because the dark side had veiled over their vision. A Padawan by the name of Wee saw his end at the hand of a blue lightsaber, only slightly revealing his death at the hand of Anakin Skywalker. But other than small cases like this, most Jedi were taught to ignore these premonitions. What this likely means though, is that Baylan grew disillusioned with the Jedi Order and briefly embraced the dark side, and because of this, and his natural ability to see, got a vision of Order 66, allowing him to gain an advantage and go into hiding, or perhaps perceived that the clones would betray them. It's clear he once cared for the Jedi, but in order not to be sensed by the Inquisitors or Vader, perhaps he decided to delve into the dark side and learn. ultimately his ability of foresight, and his prior embrace of the dark side, saving him from Order 66. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this, and do you believe that this is how Baylan managed to escape the Order? As always, my friends, thank you so much for visiting our archives, and may the Force be with you.